Welcome to the first episode of my new series, Pokémon Versus. Throughout this series, I'll be analysing two or maybe more Pokémon that are somewhat similar in some way, whether it be design, similar roles in competitive, or something else, to see which Pokémon does the better job in a specific aspect. I'll be comparing each Pokémon's typing, stats, abilities, move pool, performance in singles, performance in doubles, and then finish off by seeing who would win in a one-on-one face-off with the tools that they have. I'll also be including possible items to see how much they would help each Pokémon. The series will hopefully help out anyone looking to get into the competitive scene, as well as hopefully teaching anyone a bit more about the Pokémon featured and how they can be used effectively. So with all that said, let's start the first episode of Pokémon Versus with Mega Charizard X versus Mega Charizard Y. Let's see which Charizard Mega Evolution does better in which aspect. Now both Megas have access to the exact same move pool, so let's start by comparing their types as well as how well their move pool works with their typings. Mega Charizard Y keeps the Flying combo, giving it 6 resistances, 1 immunity and 3 weaknesses. However, one of those weaknesses is a 4 times weakness to Rock, meaning that Charizard Y is going to be super weak to Stealth Rock, losing half of its health every time it switches into the rocks. Charizard X on the other hand has 5 resistances, no immunities and 3 weaknesses, with no 4 times weakness. But at the same time, Charizard X now becomes weak to ground, one of the most common offensive types. In terms of who has the better typing, on paper Charizard Y does have the better defensive typing, since it has more resistances including Fairy and Fighting, and is even immune to one of the best offensive types in the game, being Ground, which Charizard X is weak to. However, offensively I think the combo of Fire and Dragon is much stronger than Fire and Flying, since only a handful of Pokemon resist both Fire and Dragon. So if I had to pick which typing I think is overall the stronger typing, I favour Charizard X Fire Dragon slightly more, mainly because, let's face it, it's a much cooler typing, especially on Charizard. But not just that. While X's typing does have less resistances, and Y's typing does have an immunity to ground, including an immunity to other entry hazards like spikes, X's Dragon Fire combo is still a great typing both offensively and defensively. Plus Charizard Y is still 4 times weak to Stealth Rock. X may be weak to rocks, but it doesn't lose 50% of its health when switching in. And finally, Charizard has much better moves that benefit the Dragon typing as opposed to the Flying typing, like Dragon Claw, Dragon Pulse and even Outrage. So for typing, I give the slight edge to Charizard X. Next, let's look at both Mega Evolution's stats and abilities. Stat-wise, it's actually quite interesting to compare. Both Charizard X's attack stacks raise to an impressive 130 base total, and its physical defense rises to 111, giving X a good amount of physical bulk. Charizard Y has a decent raise of physical attack to 104, but a monstrous raise to special attack with a whopping 159. In comparison, that's higher than Mewtwo's special attack stat. Yeah, Charizard Y officially hits harder than a frickin' Mewtwo. And while X got an increase on the physical defense side, Y got an increase on the special side, giving it an impressive 115 special defense stat, meaning it can take a Thunderbolt much better than before. Both Charizard forms keep the same speed stat, so it's pretty difficult to determine which stat spread you prefer, the one that's more physical or the one that's more special. So let's see how their abilities change things up. Charizard X gets the Tough Claws ability, making any move that makes physical contact have a 33% power increase, essentially giving it free Life Orb damage. On the physical side, this is amazing, as in combination with the 130 base attack stat, Charizard X is going to hit very hard, especially with a stab move like Dragon Claw or Flare Blitz. The only downside to this ability is that 130 base special attack stat is most likely going to go to waste every time Charizard X is going to be used, since you need a physical move to make contact for the Tough Claws to kick in. Charizard Y's ability is Drought. Simply put, Drought is busted. The sun means your fire moves are going to get a 50% increase. In combination with your 159 special attack stat, a Fire Blast or an Overheat from the Sing is going to hurt immensely. The sun also means that Charizard Y can use Solar Beam for free. It can also be a great help for your team, especially if you have a Chlorophyll user, giving even more synergy, and you're able to counter other weather teams with Drought. And finally, thanks to Drought, while the sun is up, Charizard Y loses its water weakness. So you're probably not going to be one-shotting a Charizard Y with a water move. But the most important buff that Charizard Y gets, Drought means that Charizard officially beats Blastoise. Now of course the 104 attack boost may go to waste since Charizard Y's special attack is so amazing. However, moves like Flare Blitz are still perfectly usable, especially against special walls. And the attack buff isn't as much as a wasted X's special attack stat. I mean, imagine if Charizard X's attack stat was 159, that would be insane! So as for stats and abilities, I've got to give the edge to Mega Charizard Y, with its Drought ability being the main factor. Alright, I've talked about both these Pokemon's typings, abilities and stats, but how well do these Charizard Megas play out in battle? Let's start with their singles performance. Now both these Pokemon are extremely good in singles. Both Megas hit extremely hard as well as being able to take hits themselves. However, out of the two, Charizard X does have the advantage. For one, Charizard Y, again, is 4 times weak to Stealth Rock, compared to Charizard X's ×2 weakness. Charizard X also has the advantage of being a much better sweeper, since it benefits more from Dragon Dance than Charizard Y does. Charizard Y can use Dragon Dance, but nowhere near as effectively as X, since the combination of Fire and Dragon is near perfect coverage, as well as Charizard Y being a better special attacker than physical attacker. Charizard also has arguably better physical coverage than special coverage, with access to Earthquake for Pokemon like Heatran, Rock Slide for other Charizards, and a load of other physical moves. For special coverage, Charizard doesn't even have a special ground move aside from Hidden Power Ground, and the only special fighting move it gets is Focus Blast, which in my opinion is a pretty horrible move. Not to mention it doesn't get any move that raises its special attack, with the only exception being Ancient Power. This means Charizard Y is going to have a much harder time sweeping. Now the Y Mega does have some advantages over the X Mega in singles. Of course, Charizard Y hits a lot harder on the special side. It has grass coverage with Solar Beam, it has the Sun, and it has more resistances including a ground immunity. But Charizard X's offensive power and sweeping abilities along with its decent bulk gives it the advantage in singles. Now let's move on to the doubles format, which is a very different story from singles. You'd probably think that Mega Charizard X would be as devastating in doubles as it is in singles, but unfortunately that's not the case. While Charizard X is still good in doubles, it's nowhere near as dominant compared to singles. It's much harder to set up and sweep in a doubles game, since there's double targeting, and Protect is an extremely common move. Intimidate is also pretty common in doubles, since it lowers both the opposing Pokemon's attack stat by 1 stage. Doubles is where Charizard Y really shines. Literally. Even though I still think it's great in singles, I consider it better in doubles. Drought is much more useful, being able to pair Charizard with a Pokemon that can benefit nicely from the sun. Drought also allows you to counter other weather teams, like Rain and Sandstorm. Charizard Y also gets access to Heat Wave, which gets a stat boost, a sun boost, and hits both opposing Pokemon, making Charizard Y even scarier in doubles. Looking at the downsides to Charizard Y, Rock Slide is one of the most common moves in VGC, and with Pokemon like Garchomp, Landorus T and Tyranitar that pretty much always have this move, means the majority of people will most likely have something to hurt Charizard quite a bit. One thing Charizard X does have over its Y counterpart is the surprise factor. Since almost everyone expects the Y Mega in doubles, most people are going to think that an electric attack is pretty safe. And since most people won't expect Mega Charizard X, it's likely it'll be able to get an unexpected hit or a possible Dragon Dance setup because of it. But overall, I still do think Charizard Y has the advantage over X in the doubles format, thanks to the benefit of the Sun being able to counter more teams in doubles like weather, and benefit partner Pokemon. With Charizard X, the team would almost have to revolve around it, to make it work as well as other popular Megas in doubles. But Charizard Y not only works great on its own, but it allows the user to elevate the team against other teams. So in short, if you're playing singles, I lean towards Mega Charizard X, but when it comes to doubles, I recommend Mega Charizard Y. In terms of who I think is better competitively overall, that is actually very difficult. Both Mega forms are great, and fulfill their roles better than a lot of others that have the same roles. However, if you had to twist my arm and force me to choose, I do give the slight advantage to Mega Charizard Y. It's pretty much great in singles and amazing in doubles. Charizard X is amazing in singles and pretty good in doubles. The Y version also benefits slightly more from the stat boosts it gains, and has a slightly more favourable ability. And when it comes to Charizard Y's specific role of being a sun setter, no one does it better, not including Groudon. Charizard X is still in some competition with others when it comes to sweeping and Dragon Dancing, so even though I choose X over Y for singles, if I had to pick only one for both singles and doubles, I would just pick Charizard Y slightly over Charizard X. However, we're not quite done yet. This wouldn't be a true versus match if I didn't analyse which Pokemon I think would, more times out of 10, kick the other one's ass. Let's see how each Charizard Mega would fare one-on-one against each other. Both Pokemon will be set to level 50 and have access to their entire move pool, and then EVs will be experimented with depending on what sets are used. So a lot of the times, one-on-ones usually come down to which Pokemon gets to move first. Here, both Megas have the same speed stat, which means this can be pretty tough, since it's really all luck who moves first. So we're going to have to look at what moves Charizard has access to, and see which Mega benefits from the move pool more. But before looking at the move pool, right off the bat we can tell that Charizard X has the slight advantage, since it hits extra hard thanks to its Tough Claws ability. As amazing as Charizard Y's Drought ability is, Here, it's pretty useless, since the only moves that Charizard Y has that benefit from the sun are 4 times resisted by Charizard X, meaning that Charizard Y is going to have to resolve to other moves. So looking at moves that Charizard X can possibly one-hit KO Charizard Y with, using Pokemon Showdown's damage calculator, it looks like it actually has a slight chance to OHKO with Flare Blitz thanks to the sun, meaning that it looks like Y's drought ability is actually hurting it more than helping. Charizard X is guaranteed a one-hit KO with Rock Slide, although Rock Slide does have a 10% chance to miss. But if Charizard X wants the guaranteed one-hit KO as well as the guaranteed hits, an Outrage from an Adamant or even Jolly Charizard X with Max Attack is a guaranteed KO. Looking at what moves Charizard Y has for Charizard X, Charizard does receive Earthquake. However, even with an Adamant Nature and Max Attack, Earthquake still wouldn't KO without a crit. The best shot Charizard Y has is a tiny chance to one-hit KO with Dragon Pulse and a Timid Nature, which is increased to a 50% chance to one-hit KO with a Modest Nature, and that's if Mega Charizard X doesn't have any health or special defense EVs. That sadly is not as reliable as X's guaranteed KO, especially since Charizard Y needs the Modest Nature to have the 50% chance to KO. But since Charizard X can KO with the Jolly Nature, that means Charizard X will be outspeeding. So because of this, 1-on-1, Mega Charizard X wins. But hey, remember that none of this means that one of the Charizard Mega forms is better or worse than the other. Sure, each Charizard Mega has their advantages over the other, but overall it's really up to you which Charizard Mega you prefer. Do you choose the Mega that's better in a specific format? Or do you pick the Mega you personally prefer, whether it be design or because of its awesome typing? So hopefully this video will somehow help you when it comes to picking which Charizard Mega to use on your team. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching the first episode of this new series. If you do happen to disagree with anything, which I indeed do see some people doing, that's completely fine. And if you respect my opinion and reasons, I will happily respect yours. And if you'd like to see more Pokemon videos in the future and possibly more versus matchups like this, you can like and subscribe to be notified for when the next one will come out. So until next time, thanks so much for watching.